Look, it was always predicted that healthcare would be one of the big ticket items on budget night. Now, if the government introduces the audit's recommendations, we could be, as Julia Doyle just flagged, seeing the end of universal healthcare in Australia. The Treasurer admits not all the report's suggestions will be popular.
I have no doubt that there will be many issues that are highly contentious and somewhat difficult for various stakeholders and some in the community to accept. But there is an overwhelming challenge here, and that is to ensure that the budget is structurally fit for the future.
Labor's called the Commission's document an attack on healthcare.
This report is a plan to make sure that families get less while millionaires get more. This is an attack on healthcare, make no mistake about it. It is the argument for a new GP tax, a new hospital tax, and more expensive medicines which Australians desperately need.
All right, let's look closely at what the audit had to say about healthcare. Anne Henderson, how do you respond to these changes? Is it the end of universal healthcare?
I think
it certainly seems to be.
The word universal's reached its use-by date. And I live in one of, as Joe Hockey said, Joe Hockey's electorate is the wealthiest in the country, and over-servicing for health services there is as prominent as anywhere. Also bulk billing, in an area that's so wealthy, bulk billing is very high. And people actually buy houses in this area, $1 to $3 million houses, so they can go to the DEM school, the Demonstration Public School, because it's a wonderful school. So what you're dealing with here is people who are well able to make some contribution to their health, to their education of their children, deliberately working their whole economy of the family around the idea of getting it all for free.
So that would support means testing, but what about the co-payments?
Well, co-payment, there's a huge over-servicing. A lot of people just go to the doctor, especially elderly people. A lot of them just go to the doctor as somewhere to go. And I've heard that said by relatives all over the place. And it won't be you pay every time you go. There'll probably be a cap, how many visits you go, and then there'll be co-payments after that. So it's not like you're going to be left dying at the doorstep. But there is also an assumption we've had for generations that there are some things you don't pay for and other things you do pay for. You pay when you go out for dinner, you pay for your holidays. Some people pay for their education, but other people, many people think you get your health for nothing, you get your education for nothing. And eventually you've got to say these things are valuable, and if they're valuable, you make a contribution if you can afford it. And I think it's time, well overdue.
Ben Oquist, what's your response to this?
Well, we do pay for health services, of course. We pay through our taxation system. We've got a progressive taxation system where if you're on a higher income earner, you pay a bit more.
Yes, but we don't pay as much as it costs.
No, we pay for a universal scheme that works out actually the cheapest for all of us together. Now, going down this kind of two-tiered or taking away universality is going down the American system. Now, just on the cost and the economics of it is crazy. We are going to pay a certain amount for health. If the society is getting older, people are getting sicker, we're going to pay for that health. The question is how to pay for that health. Now, a robust public system not only gives you the better health outcomes, it's cheaper overall. And the example of following down, which just takes us down the US model, is to say that not only will we pay more overall, but the health outcomes will be worse. When it comes to the $15 co-payment, it's just such a mixed message. We're always being encouraged. I see ads on TV telling men to go to their GP. Don't let it fester. Get that ailment checked out, because actually going to the GP is good not only for your health, but good economically. It's the cheapest part of the health system. And to discourage people from going to the GP will not only lead to bad health outcomes, but bad economic health outcomes.
So, but are there parts of this that you do support then? So, means testing instead of the universal co-payment?
Well, I think once you start tampering with universality, you start messing with the whole idea of getting a cheaper public system delivered for everybody. And the lessons from the US is going down that path is a recipe for disaster. It's interesting that even the Commission of Audit hasn't recommended means testing the co-payment. It's even gone worse than that. It's just had a blanket $15 co-payment for everybody. I don't know what people are doing, who are watching this ad on TV tonight that tells you to go and visit your GP if you've got an ailment, but they're hearing the Business Council say don't.
But you can go, you won't probably have to pay for that. They're probably, this is all just an audit. This is the Calvinists have moved in on the Catholic Prime Minister. This is an audit. If you know anything about an audit, it's all about bean counting and money. It's not policy, and a lot of it will never be able to be enacted anyway because it's not politically able. But Adam Crichton had a very interesting piece in The Australian, and he wrote it for the Sydney Morning Herald, where he has shown that only the top 20% actually pay any tax. Most Australians don't pay any net tax because the amount they get back from the government is far greater than the amount we contribute. And what happens is, as you go down the years, and if you look at the projections, we have promised Australians things that when you get to 2016 and beyond, we aren't going to be able to pay for. And so what this government or this audit is trying to say is, do it now because you don't want to get to the situation that they found themselves in America or in Europe.
Ellen Fanning, any sympathy for that position?
I think it's interesting to try and figure out whether or not the government's ambition can really match the rhetoric, as Anne was saying. And I think that what you're looking at here is a kind of vision of what you would see if democratically elected politicians didn't run the country, if you kind of had a benevolent dictatorship of business. And that's interesting, but I don't think it's realistic, and I don't think the Treasurer thinks it's particularly realistic. But what they're fundamentally saying is, and I think it's why it will unnerve people, not only because there's questions unanswered, as Ben said, but they're basically saying, let's look at this social contract we've drawn up over the years, shall we? Let's look at universal healthcare. Let's look at the trade-offs we made in the Keating years and the social wage. Let's look at all that and turn it upside down. And hey, how come that federation, that's not a three-legged race, that's a nine-legged race? What happens if you... Hang on, let's go back there. Wasn't there some convention in 1897? Hang on, let's rewrite. And you're sort of thinking, really? Really? There's a budget in 2 weeks and we want to kind of go back and say, what's the basis of the federation anyway?
But we do need the conversation to start. And I think this has scared a lot of people. So now you have to sort of bring it back down to what's possible.
It's the perfect point for me to bring up, Ben. I'm going to go to you in just one moment. But I mean, that is what